All right. We will go ahead and get started. There's nothing better to usher in a new batch of joinees than actually starting the meeting, so it's always a good little trick. All right. See, I was right. And we begin. Today, we're going to be mostly doing a little bit of a debrief recap, highlighting of the summit. We actually don't have as many updates today. I will focus your attention on the agenda because we're not going to actually speak to any of these typical updates, but there is a slew, a virtual plethora, a whole list of links of blog posts, updates, so on and so forth. So there is actually a ton of good reading material there, everything from technical guides on the publisher tools for web monetization to a bunch of blog posts and different aspects of digital financial inclusion in our work, new podcast episodes of I think us being guests on places. Maybe I can get some team to put in now the latest episodes of other home produced web podcasts there as well. In that podcast section, you can see reports and updates from grantees. So there, it really is a rich text of updates and blog posts and stuff to dig into. So that is about the extent of our ILF updates, but maybe I will take a pause and see if any of the ILF staff or community want to open their mic and verbalize something, since we have a little bit of time and we can be a little bit ad lib. So if so, open your mic and speak. That's terrifying. Okay. So we'll keep it moving then. We'd like to introduce people to our community as they come on as partners or grantees or otherwise moving in and out of our ecosystem and our expanding network. So Sarah Corley, I believe you're out there somewhere, a recent grantee. Why don't you introduce yourself, your organization, and a little bit about your work? And some people probably ran into you at the summit a few weeks back.
Awesome. Thank you so much for A, giving us a grant to work on a really exciting project, and B, for welcoming us into the community. So I'm Sarah Corley. I'm the founder and the CEO of the Alliance of Digital Finance and FinTech Associations. We now have 43 members within our organization who are various different types of digital finance and FinTech associations across 50 different markets from the globe. So from one side of the world, we start with Chile, and the other we end on Australia. So going South America, Africa, Europe, and the Caribbean, I missed them, and across to Asia and then Australia. And so what we try and do with our community is firstly also very similar to this, bring them all together, create a platform for sharing knowledge and learning, both learning about the digital finance and fintech industry, but also really importantly as well, how to run an industry association, because there's not a lot of knowledge out there about that. And through our conversations, we try and identify 2 or 3 key areas that we work on each year. And what came out at our annual general meeting back in the end of 2024 was some challenges around instant payment systems and how kind of smaller players, your fintechs, your microfinance, smaller banks, sort of challenger banks, digital banks, were having difficulties with getting into instant payment systems, which was creating kind of either barriers for them that took months to be able to deliver their products and services efficiently through the system and onboard, or in some cases they couldn't onboard at all, or it made the cost very expensive to the end user. And you know, the big part of those particular industry players is often around trying to reach the and underserved population. So without necessarily meaning to be, the design of instant payment systems actually often didn't really meet the financial inclusion needs that many were set up to fund in the first place. So I'm really delighted that we are doing a bit of research on trying to figure out what might some potential ideas and solutions be that could sort of help address some of those challenges, whether it's a sort of technical perspective, some of that might be API kind of standards related. It could be related to perhaps policy and regulation, intent and vision of the IPS in the first place, and things around, sort of business cases as well for those entities to be able to deliver affordable services to those they want to serve. So we've only just started. We are 3 out of 18 focus groups discussed. So we'll be doing more in the new year, and hopefully I can share much more with you then. Thank you very much.
We will definitely be doing some follow-up, but let me ask a couple follow-up questions now, Sarah, since we have a little bit of time, and I have a few that I think be interesting. Can you actually go a little bit more in detail about how you all meet, what your process is? Tell us a little, a little bit about how you manage the network and how you engage and interact with your members.
Sure. So we have a WhatsApp group, which is a very low-cost way for us all to keep in touch together, along with a very high-tech Excel spreadsheet that lists all of the different members, their emails, phone numbers, social media websites. So that is a way in which we kind of sort of try and bring the community together. But of course, on top of that, we have monthly member meetings similar to this, where part of that meeting is me giving an update, but also we then have space for each member to share either things they're needing some support or help on, or great achievements they've made, or events they've got coming up. We also usually produce a newsletter, although it has slipped off my agenda for the last couple of months because we've been so busy traveling everywhere and doing a lot of project work. But that also, the aim of that newsletter is for things that they can share with their members. So we often try and put in there things like accelerator programs and interesting calls for grants that either the associations or various fintechs and other financial service providers might be interested in. And then we try and make sure that I have regular engagements with all of our members. As we get to 43, that does become a little bit more of a challenge, but I do try and make sure that I at least on a quarterly basis have some sort of check-in with every member, even if it's a quick WhatsApp phone call, just to make sure that the relationships are still building. And then we also have working groups. We are hoping to sort of set up some working groups between associations discussing things like cryptocurrency and tokenization, possibly also digital credit for micro and nano entrepreneurs. That's another topic that came up at the annual general meeting. And data and open finance is another really interesting one. So that enables members to talk and share, industry related challenges, but also potentially figure out what new projects or, sort of research or solutions they might like the wider network to do together in order to sort of tackle some of the challenges that many face, because I'm sure many of you will recognize that sometimes it doesn't matter whether you're sat in Chile or Indonesia or in India or in Australia or in Nigeria. The challenges that they can face for their ecosystems can be very similar.
All right, I have 2 more questions for you in my mini interview. I'm taking the opportunity with a little bit of extra room in the community call. One, how do you grow your membership, and what are you looking for in members?
Great. So we're now in a position where our membership grows a little bit more organically. Often we are referred to other associations by other members, which is really wonderful. So we just recently had the Ukraine FinTech Association join us, and that was a referral from the Swiss FinTech Association. So that is a really good sign to me that we're doing the right thing if our members are referring others. And then, we've grown. So Alliance is only me. It's only one person. Technically, running 24. It's a full-time job running the organization. And what that means is we decided with the board to make a strategic decision about expanding in a way that kind of sort of felt feasible and made sure that the members felt valued when they were brought onto the into the membership, and it didn't feel like it was all too rushed. So we started with Africa, built out into Asia, and then South America is on our target for focus of next year. And so we basically ask existing members for referrals and introductions into new markets. Or often, sometimes we're working in projects with other organizations who can introduce us to those. I was in Mexico, so had the wonderful opportunity to pop down the road and meet FinTech Mexico in person while I was there. And so what we're looking for is associations that are interested in, obviously, digital finance or FinTech. They can call themselves either name. And then we also make sure that they have an interest in something along the lines of financial inclusion or consumer protection. So it's that sort of social impact, wanting to try and make sure that any digital finance or FinTech a sort of work that is done also has a social impact, or at least a responsible focus lens. So that looks quite different. So, if I think about the members in Africa that we have, we have like Nigeria and Kenya and South Africa and Rwanda, that would look very different to how financial inclusion and consumer protection would look in Switzerland and Australia. But the purpose around advocating for the consumer to be served in the most meaningfully and responsibly way is what sits at the heart of our membership.
Thank you. I'm going to see if anyone has any questions or follow up with me. And I have one. I'm gonna use my old FM radio DJ hat and do us a transition from that. But does anyone have any open questions? Aiden, you unlocked your mic, did you?
I am happy to ask a question, but I also want to make space for others, just in case. But not seeing any other hands. Maybe, Sarah, I think on the call today we have people who maybe work with fintechs, and they might be wondering, as your work with Interledger progresses, what kind of partners or perspectives would be useful for you to be connecting with from the Interledger community? Because we don't really have any fintech associations who are a part of, or who are on our community calls, but we do have fintechs. Is there a way for fintechs or non-banks to be able to connect with you and to share input, and would that be helpful?
I'm always loving having conversations with fintechs, especially those in different markets, that it helps me learn about the markets and also some of the innovations that are happening. That's how I manage to keep on top of much of my work. I'm always, sort of looking for new connections. So I'll pop my LinkedIn message, my profile, and also I'll share my email address and people can reach out. I'd love to schedule chats with people. And, we're also really looking, if anybody has any strong views about enablers and barriers to instant payment systems in their country, feel free to message, because we can maybe look at including you in an upcoming focus group in January, or even looking at your market. Perhaps we hadn't even, sort of trying to have a global lens on something. We may miss an important, a country that we should be having this conversation in. So I am here. I am always looking for great connections and conversation. So please just reach out to me, or even reach out to me via your local FinTech association. If you see on our list of members when I share our websites that your association is not a member, please advocate to come and join us and be part of our community as well.
And Chris, you're muted at the moment.
Oh, that was dumb. Thank you, Sarah. That was thanks for being in improv mode with me and doing a little pop-up Q&A. I'll give you an outro question here that'll transition us into our deep dive. You were at the summit a few weeks ago, and in fact moderated a panel. Any big takeaways or things that have stuck with you from the summit as we transition into Anna?
I really enjoyed the panel discussion that we had, and there was a couple of really practical things, I think, and a shocking figure as well that came out of our discussion around kind of consumer protection and designing for consumers. So let me start with one that came from Fior, who's from TechCheck. She mentioned how about 5% of consumer complaints are actually addressed appropriately and resolved in favor of the consumer in Mexico. And I'm sure there are many other jurisdictions around the world, not wanting to beat on Mexico, but there are many around the world that probably have similar records. So I think, making sure that if we are going to be part of a financial ecosystem and deliver products and services to the consumer, we also have a responsibility to work on things like consumer redress and consumer recourse, not just for ourselves, but also to actively, promote that and ask for that in our country. And then another really practical thing that I really loved, and I can't remember who said it on our panel, but I will look it up and give them credit in the chat in just a moment, was the idea of, every fintech, every financial service provider has a bottom line. We all know that everybody has to make money, but we can do so responsibly, but we all have to make money. And so reports that go to the board will always have financial figures in it. How about we find a way to measure our consumers' trust in those figures and include them in the board, so that consumer trust and things like, acquisition and, retention of consumers, but plus, because those things are not just an indication of trust, they could also be a lack of competition in the market. So how can we, as organizations, find ways to track that our customers are finding meaningful use from the products that we are offering them?
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sarah. You can, you can now, you're off the spotlight here, so you can go back to, to joining the chorus, and I'll hand it over to Anna, who's going to walk us through the deep dive debrief of the summit for this year.
Okay, amazing. Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Sarah. That was really interesting, learning more about what you do, and thank you for the participation in the summit. So Vinyl has a slide deck, so he's going to share the screen and we can go through that. I didn't trust myself sharing Google Slides. I always seem to mess it up, so I thought we'd go with the safe bet. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so I've put the Interledger Summit Journey in Mexico 2025. So I think what's really nice when you get to this time of year, I don't know about anybody else, but it's a little bit of a slowdown, and you start to kind of make space to reflect on the year and do all the paperwork that often piles up on the desk and the admin duties. And so what we've been doing is looking back over not just the summit, but where we started our journey in January this year. We started with a kind of an aspiration, building on the work that we did in Cape Town last year in terms of local participation, to start thinking about, okay, well, what can we do in Mexico to really broaden the kind of Interledger community and share the great work that a lot of people on this call, have been doing for many years in terms of building with the kind of Interledger, but also the research and development, the ambassadorships. There's such a body of work there that we really wanted to kind of think about how we can bring more people in. And one of the intentions was that we wanted people to arrive at the summit from local areas that already had heard about Interledger, and were really starting to come and think about what role it may feature in the work that they do, either from a technical perspective or from policy, advocacy, activation, mission-aligned organisations and people. So that started in January when we started to set out our vision, and the first activity that we did, so going on to the next slide, is we had a summit programme committee week. So it's the first year that we've had a summit programme committee, and that was led brilliantly by Chris, who's amazing at facilitating lots of people's ideas and bringing it together in terms of how can we shape intentional programming and make sure that we can reflect those insights then throughout the summit for broad audiences. So we had a week in rural Mexico, having a real privilege of meeting people that are experiencing the financial infrastructure that we talk about every day. And sometimes we can feel a little bit disconnected from that, because if you have access to financial systems, if you have access to infrastructure in order to benefit from the products and services that we talk about all the time, how do you start to really understand what it means, when we're talking about connecting rural communities or building in environments where there is, electric kind of goes out, or there isn't internet, like there isn't that same level of connectivity. Your starting point is very different. And so it was a week going and meeting producers, looking at amazing businesses, and also experiencing the kind of the rich culture of Mexico, which was fantastic. And that really started to kind of shape from that kind of week into like what were the programmatic elements of the summit, and how we brought that to the 2 days we spent together. We also then, so going on to the next slide, so Brianna then spent a week in Mexico on a listening tour, really, so kind of meeting what the kind of local ecosystem that are already working in open finance. And again, one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we do as we move the summit into different locations each year is respect that there's a lot of people doing amazing work. You know, so Interledger is part of existing ecosystems. It's part of kind of finding out what's going on and celebrating the work and people that share that kind of vision of more inclusive digital financial services. So one of the connections that we made was Open Finance Tribe. So a group of people that are really kind of pushing the agenda forward, and were kind of key to helping us build new connections. And you saw many of the contributors at the summit at various speaking opportunities, and also in the audience from Open Finance Tribe as well. And then one of the other kind of big connections that we made, I don't know why I put that picture in. It's like I chose these pictures. It was a mistake. So it was Finno Summit. So Finno Summit do the largest fintech kind of festival. So they have like 2,500 people that go to their conference every year. But they also do a lot of research as well. So we commissioned research, and Chiara worked with the team throughout the year, kind of pulling together a research paper, which was really looking at the Internet of Opportunity, our key campaign message for this year, and unlocking financial interoperability in Latin America. So as well as existing data, we interviewed 50 fintech organizations within Mexico to really see what is the appetite for interoperability. So what are the barriers and what are the opportunities, with really a call to action at the end, which was about like, okay, what can we do together to support a more connected financial ecosystem within Mexico. And we launched that at Finno Summit, and we had one of it was a great launch. We had about 120 people there. May or may not have been doing the fact that we were serving alcohol at 11 o'clock in the morning, but you know, I'd like to say it was just purely the research, and we had some really good media coverage there as well. And a booth where lots of people across different departments in Interledger, from our technology team to the programs team to communications, talking to people about the Interledger Foundation. Okay. And next slide. And then for anybody that was at the summit, we also shared earlier in the year the People's Code, so the short docu-film. So going back to the Summit Programme Committee when we were in rural Mexico, we were filming a documentary film at the same time as well. And it was really about kind of highlighting the lived experience of people, and the role of financial infrastructure, and also the work of MOOCs and PCH in terms of trying to address some of those barriers, build within the community, and to create a platform really for people to share their experience. But it also celebrate the work that is being done, and a lot of it was looking at some of the producers, and that kind of, I suppose, relationship between incredible ingenuity, innovation, and also infrastructure barriers, and how do you build for reality. So that's kind of one of the personal kind of like highlights of the year for me, was being able to kind of listen to and then share those stories as well. So we were in over 90 publications in Mexico. We actually launched the Internet of Opportunity messaging, a Rewriting the Rules Internet of Opportunity launch, where we kind of brought people together. So really looking at, and we've got a short video we can share with you as well. I can't claim the build for reality. I think that's Pedro's. I think that was Pedro's strapline. You know, I'll take it. And the like what we did here was really kind of like start to reposition our messaging around, how can we make money move like data, creating the internet of opportunities so individuals, businesses and economies can grow. And that's really been our key kind of anchor message and the theme that we've taken throughout the year. And also shout out to Jeremiah for all the work that he did on that, making sure it was a well thought through kind of messaging and a kind of viable kind of proposition as well. And that really started to bring people together around like what the mission of Interledger is and how the technology actually works as well. And then so all of these things, if we go to the next slide, then if it comes through, brought us to the Interledger Summit. So you can see we had a lot of activities through the year creating those conversations and culminated in an event that then we had some of our highest numbers there. So if we go on to the next slide, we had obviously the celebration of 10 years of Interledger Protocol and also 5 years of the foundation. We had 285 attendees over the 2 days, which when we booked the summit, what we throughout the year, then what happened, there was 3 other conferences in Mexico that were happening the same day. So we were very pleased that we still managed to make compelling enough reasons for people to come to the Interledger Summit, which was great. And there was over, if we go to the next slide, highest local participation. So we were aiming for like about 50-50, but we got 65% of local participation at the summit as well, which was fantastic. And again, the partners that we'd worked with throughout the year, we got a lot of support from them activating their network. Like I say, a really busy time as well to bring people to Interledger. And again, that's credit to the work that's been done, not just for the summit, but over the years in terms of building that kind of community that people want to be part of as well. During the summit, we launched the Interledger wallet and the cards. So I think that at one point there was people spilling out of the tech room and they were watching it from downstairs. And other highlights we had as well. So if we go on to the next slide. A growing number of digital financial services grantees. So I think we've got a nice point at the summit where you've got people that have been there from the beginning, and then we've also got a new tranche of kind of grantees coming in as well, people that are totally new to the ecosystem, and you really start to see that kind of open learning and sharing in terms of what people have experienced in their journey and that openness to help other grantees coming through there as well. Which was great. And we had the community showcase that was kind of in partnership with MOOCs, and shout out to Jessica who led on that one as well. And we were bringing together the local producers and also the opportunity then for them to kind of experience the PCH app for the first time. So I think people were really excited to get a sense of what that kind of future holds when that kind of moves forward as well, which was fantastic. And then of course we had on our last slide the Interledger Summit party. So it was, which was moved by consensus, I think, by a lot of people to the last day of the summit. So people didn't have to worry about going to bed too early because they had to be up for a presentation the next day. So now obviously like with all of the summits, we're really keen to hear people's feedback. Not everything goes right, there's always things that we can improve, but I think what we try and do is always take that feedback on board so we can keep improving and keep building. So massive thank you to everybody, for our local partners in Mexico, the Interledger community, whether you're at the summit or supporting from afar. All the work that's been done really culminates in a compelling community that people want to be part of. The Summit Programme Committee and Chris's leadership of that for shaping the depth of the sessions that were there, tech team for keeping pushing forward in terms of what's possible, to Brianna and everyone really that is kind of behind the scenes that you don't see, from kind of our finance to operations teams, the website design, which are furiously translating everything, and Marianne did a lot of translations, Sarah and Jonathan, so a lot of last minute changes, pulling everything through, which was brilliant. The visual identity from Madalena and marketing, Chiara is throughout all of those events done loads of work bringing people in, which has been fantastic. So yes, thank you, but thank you mostly also to our grantees, to everybody that makes our events as special as they are. And that is it from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Anna. Before we go into some, I don't know, double dip deep dives, any questions or anything for Anna doing that amazing overview of the journey to and the summit? Okay, it's a commute through emojis, communicate through emojis type day. All right, so I'm not going to belabor this too much, but I will give a brief introduction to the idea of the Summit Programming Committee. As most of you may know, and I'll update you if you don't. In previous years, we did more of an open call for proposals, and then there's a deadline, and then we assess those, and then we sort of made up the programming based on what we got in. This year, we took a slightly different, well, significantly different approach in that we pulled together both a mix of staff and community grantees, a summit programming committee. Anna talked a bit about what we did to bring them together and kind of have a design and brainstorming experience in Mexico and connect with our local partners, local culture, and the realities on the ground there that would be highlighting at the summit. And then they broke up into different teams and programmed the different areas. So the things like the listening lab, with the panels and the talks, to the learning together lab, which were the workshops, to the demo hall and theater. So, as well as some of the ambient activities that went along or were part of the overall content presentation of the program. And then they went and recruited and worked with and prepared those folks that would be giving the program. So, for instance, we heard from Sarah Corley earlier. So she worked with Aiden and her panelists to prep and prepare to deliver an awesome panel. So with that, we will go a little bit and kind of hear from different folks that helped to drive that from the program committee and do a little bit of an overview. So I think, Aiden, you are first on my list.
All right, and then I'm happy to go first. Hi, everyone. So as Chris mentioned, this year for the Listening Lab, which was essentially the main stage panels that we had 8 sessions across the 2 days where we brought together community organizers, fintech builders, regulators, funders, and other subject matter experts who coalesced around 4 themes that all essentially pointed to the same conclusion, that if we are serious about digital financial inclusion, and we are, it's something that we all care about, then we really have to rethink our assumptions about technology, about power, and about who actually gets to own the system. And I'll just briefly walk you through the 4 themes, but I would also say that all of the sessions were recorded. So if you want to explore any of the sessions in detail, they are on our YouTube channel. And we also do on the community forum have write-ups of all of the 8 panels so that you can get more of an in-depth understanding and feel for the conversations that took place and the discussion points that were raised. So there were 4 themes. The first theme, I would say, was technology as political architecture. And what I mean by that is 2 of the sessions reminded us that code is never neutral. So a session that I moderated, which was Human Rights by Design, we had speakers introducing this idea of algorithmic intensification. So the way that digitization doesn't erase inequality, it often amplifies it. Payment systems quietly decide whose transactions look suspicious, who can participate in the network at all, and whose money moves quickly and cheaply across borders. And one of the speakers also sort of really emphasized the point that often when it comes to payment systems, getting money into the system is easy. Getting money out of the system is challenging. And the impact is faced more by certain communities than by others. In another session, which was called Trustworthy by Default, the panelists were really grounding those same concerns in a local Mexican context. Because despite decades of instant payments and hundreds of regulated institutions in Mexico, trust remains really fragile. Half of consumer complaints relate to unrecognized transactions, and even sophisticated users are struggling with opaque interfaces and processes. And so the message there was that trust is not a feature that you bolt on at the end. It requires transparency, it requires proximity to communities, and it requires giving people real control over their finances. A second sort of cluster of themes is around how do we reimagine capital and support systems. And so a panel that Chris moderated, which was sort of Rights and Rails was the name of it, was challenging funders to rethink what does impact look like. And the panelists were arguing that philanthropy and venture capital often invest in products that are built far away from the communities that they're meant to serve, while dismissing community-designed alternatives as unviable. And they were calling for patient capital, for wraparound support, and for metrics that are a bit more than just this is how many people are using a product, but metrics that value dignity and trust. We had a session on CDFIs. It was where do CDFIs and fintechs align and clash? CDFI stands for Community Development Financial Institutions. And this panel was exploring a tension that we see in many places, speed versus relationship. So a fintech might be able to approve a loan in 9 days, whereas a community lender may take 2 weeks. But those extra days often really represent the time that it takes to building understanding, confidence, and long-term financial health. And one of our Interledger ambassadors, Sheena Allen, was speaking on this panel about how in a US context, over the next 15 years, something like $9 trillion in wealth is about to transfer between generations as people sadly pass away and their children inherit that wealth. And she was warning that for Black Americans in particular, who are entering markets through mobile apps that are simpler to use and they feel like they're empowering people to be able to make investment decisions, the fee structures are often not as competitive as community banking alternatives might be, and that these mobile apps can lack the guidance and financial literacy that can come from in-person relationships that community lenders can often offer to their local communities. And so there's a lot of food for thought there around what is the role for fintechs, how do fintechs unlock new markets, and what are the advantages there, but also what do we lose when capital is going away from local community lenders towards apps that have fewer staff, and less of a connection to a local community. Another cluster of themes, I would say, would be those regional insights with global implications. So we had 3 sessions that were specific to Latin America, 2 of which were in Spanish, and they were showing that the region is both a source of inspiration, which is really positive and inspiring, and a warning sign as well. And so one panel, Unlocking Financial Interoperability, contrasted Mexico and Colombia, and it showed that strong technical rails are just not enough. It's not enough to have technology that works. If you don't have aligned incentives, you don't have trust, you don't have collaboration, then inclusion will stall and cash will continue to dominate. We had a really insightful panel, probably one of the ones that I personal opinion here, I really learned a lot from was called From Access to Wellbeing. And this was focusing on women's financial inclusion issues. And it was highlighting, it was going beyond just gender gaps, which we have seen in inclusion discussions before. And they were talking about how even for highly educated women, they often avoid products that are probably the better fit for them, and they use tools that are built around the needs of different people because for like a whole variety of reasons. And I can't really articulate it as well as the speakers did, but what they were saying was that we need to not be displacing existing practices like rotating savings groups. We need to be recognizing and strengthening them, and we need to be building digital financial products that work for women and that recognize that there are reasons why women, in particular in Latin America, are not using products that are probably, if we're objective, the right product for them to use. And a lot of that is to do with how products are marketed. It has a lot to do with the terminology around how products are communicating what they do versus the needs that they serve. And so again, it's that trust gap. I think that's like a common theme you're seeing in a lot of these panels. And then we also had a panel called From Policy to Practice, which was showcasing what does it mean for a community to own their infrastructure. So there was an indigenous telecommunications cooperative on the panel. There was discussions around community investment platforms and local models that really value keeping value circulating locally rather than extracting it. And finally, we had the theme of, well, how do we cultivate new talent? And so we had three of our grantees on stage from Bowie State, University of Cape Town, and the Hague University of Applied Sciences. And this panel was moderated by our Interledger ambassador, Smriti Pashira. And they were talking about how, you know, access is the problem more than talent is the problem. And so when we look at how students from historically excluded communities get the tools and the curriculum that they need, well, when they do have those needs met, then they design solutions, that established actors simply don't see. And so training ethical technologists means we need to ground them in their community realities and not just teach them how to ship code, because some skills can be, you know. And so this panel was sort of talking about what are the curriculums that we need to be developing to cultivate the next generation of open payments talent. And so just to sort of wrap up here, I suppose, like, what do all of these 8 sessions say to us? Again, I would argue that it's that financial inclusion efforts fail when systems are merely extended to communities rather than owned by them. So that sense of ownership and trust is really important, that technical choices encode values. Trust needs to be earned through openness and proximity, and meaningful inclusion means patient capital. It means inclusive governance. It means having structured governance practices in place. And it means having deep respect for the financial practices that communities are already using and understanding why, even if it appears irrational at times, communities feel comfortable with certain arrangements already. Because, I mean, and this is the difference between digital financial inclusion and financial inclusion, that often communities are in their own ways financially included, but financially included people do not necessarily want to use digital financial products, and there can be understandable reasons for that. And the ability not to participate in the system is just as important as the ability to participate in a system. So I invite you to take all of these sort of ideas as prompts. They're not conclusions necessarily, but there's a lot of questions that we should really reflect on and think about and wonder, as we're going about our own work, what assumptions are we baking into the systems that we're working on? Who is holding control over the rails, the rules, the data? How can we help our partners and grantees to shift from access to systems towards shared ownership of the architecture of economic participation itself? And thanks, Neil, for sharing some links in the chat to some individual session summaries so you can get a deeper dive into each of the conversations, but also please check out the recordings on our YouTube channel, because I have summarized from sort of my prism and what I found really interesting, but each of the sessions was about 45 minutes to an hour long, so there's a lot that I've left out here. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Aidan. LaWill, I think you're going to walk us through an example of one of the activities that we sort of had ambiently in the spaces in the financial inclusion spirals and stairs game, which I'm probably messing up the name, but why don't you correct me? Go ahead, LaWill.
Thank you, Chris. Honestly, I messed up the game a couple of I keep on finding like different terminologies back in my documentation. I created a small presentation for the people who haven't seen the game, so I hope. Let me see. Can everybody see? Oh wait, I think now can everybody see my screen? Because I'm not really sure.
Not yet. Doesn't seem any.
Can you now? Because I
Yes.
can. Yes, it's there. Sorry, Aisha. That's my first comment. I took one of the lovely pictures of, what is it, Victoria Coker, Aisha Ware, and Xiaoxi Song, also an ambassador, two of them then, and Aisha Ware, our program manager. And they helped me pilot the game. So I'm going to talk about, what is it, stairs and spirals, or steps and spirals, or snakes and ladders. For the Summit Program Committee, Tiffany Hall, Xiaoxi Song, and I were tasked to, create activities for the community hall. And I started out with a couple of ideas for games, and through suggestions of Anna, who's of course our communication director, I came towards, she suggested to me to start with snakes and ladders. So I made an adoption of it called Stairs and Spirals, the Financial Journey. It's working. So I wanted to start out with the problem, of course, about traditional financial education, because it treats money as a personal puzzle to solve. It focuses of course, on budgeting, savings, and personal responsibilities. And all of these skills are very important, but they're also incomplete. What financial or traditional financial education misses is the fact that financial journeys aren't shaped by individual choices alone, but they're also shaped by systems. With systems, I would mean like, delayed remittances that put families at risk, predatory lenders that are waiting for vulnerable moments, infrastructure gaps that exclude entire communities, but also random shocks that arrive without warning. And a person can be disciplined, and you can be intelligent and very hardworking, but it doesn't mean you do not get knocked backwards by forces beyond anyone's control. So how do we kind of teach people about these systems and not just the skills that we need to budget and save and etc. And the game is a tool to do that with. So why games work? It's interesting because quite often games are seen as purely something for entertainment, but game-based financial education actually improves financial literacy. And what is often forgotten is that games also engage with emotions. They're able to create empathy, not through explanation, but just through the experience. So you don't just learn about that about the fact that delayed payments are quite stressful, but you can also feel the panic when your remittances doesn't arrive and you can't pay your rent. So it's about not just understanding that safety nets matters, but also that you feel relief when a community savings group, for example, catches you before you spiral into debt. So this is the experiential learning, and also what sticks. So how does Steps and Spirals, or the Interledger Foundation Steps and Spirals adoption work? Let's go to the next slides. The purpose of this board game was quite simple. Adopt a current, easy-to-play board game, I can hear myself, and redesign it to show access, opportunity, inequality, and safety nets that shapes people's financial lives. So it's a 100-tile or color tile board game representing a financial journey, of course. You start with 1 and you end up with 100. The steps, or every tile has a different color. The steps are orange. These are the opportunities, such as digital wallets, microloans, business licenses, and community support. So those are the moments that you move forward. The spirals are purple. Those are the systematic barriers, such as network outages, loan denials, predatory fees. So the forces that pull you backwards through no fault of your own. Then you have the safety net. So those are the protections. So that could be a credit union. It could be, the consumer protection law, but also family support or insurances. So those are the structures we have as a society that catch you when you fail. And what structure can also be, of course, I already mentioned that. It can also be like the family support. And then the pink one is the system shocks. So those are the tiles that affect everybody, such as banking crises, inflation surges, climate disasters, policy changes. So it's kind of like the reminder that we're all connected through larger forces. The players roll the dice, draw a card, and navigate that journey together. So the tiles and the cards are all connected. I just wanted to say that, just to be sure. And we're going to move to that in a bit. And I also wanted to say that while the players all begin at the same starting point, which is not a true reflection of real life, still by rolling the dice, they experience kind of like a non-linear journey that involves random shocks and also moments of solidarity. So once you roll the dice and you land on one of the colored cards, the corresponding, you can draw corresponding cards. And these are examples of the cards that we created. And every colored group or every group has 30 cards. So for example, the step one, the orange one is a community saving group is formed. You gain one safety net card, which then, if you look at the safety net card, which is the teal card, it states legal support. Advisors help you challenge unfair treatment, skip the next spiral. Oh, and then a payment delay and a technology ban. I don't want to take in too much time. So what players learn. So it's not only about winning, even though I know that everybody wants to win or reach 100. The learning outcomes are supposed to emerge quite naturally. So financial journeys are shaped by the system designs, but not just the personal, not just by the personal journeys. Safety nets aren't the luxuries, they're essential for the infrastructure. Through system shocks, you learn that one shock without support can cause years of setbacks, or basically tiles of setbacks. Technology can empower, but also exclude. And the community tools like saving groups are powerful equalizers. So the players actually leave with three things: is more empathy for excluded communities, a clear understanding of aspects of exclusions or factors of exclusions, and an insight into how to design fairer systems. So it's designed for educators teaching financial inclusion in schools and universities, NGOs, policymakers, fintech organizations, and community safe groups, and especially, for our community. I hope, let's see, the game could become, a bridge between lived experience and data and individual stories, and discussions in the digital financial inclusion space, and of course, between understanding and a problem, and better understanding between problems and imagining solutions. So that's it. The game doesn't really, Steps and Spirals. I keep on saying the name wrong. It doesn't, it's not a lecture. It invites participation. It doesn't even explain particularly exclusion, but it shows why it shows why digital financial inclusion matters. It's a tool for people to understand risk, shocks, and systemic barriers, and a experience to shift perception. So once it's on the website, promotion. It will be available under Creative Commons licenses, so take it, use it, adapt it, and share it within your communities. It's a printable tool, and I hope it will help us create better systems as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lawil. All right, Joanna, I apologize. You got a little bit towards the end. That was probably my fault, so apologies. We will let you finish out so we get a good, solid recording of all the share outs. If you have to go, you go, but I will stay till the end. Go, take it away. You're going to cover both the demo lab and tell us a little bit about the hackathon.
Yeah. So the third track, or the third space that we created for the summit, was the demo lab, where we wanted to share more about the product side or the technology implementation that we work here at Interledger, but not only from the employee side or our contractor side. We wanted to put into the spotlight all the work that we do through our programs too, especially that we do have a lot of them creating new stuff or creating new opportunities for people to use our technology developed. We started the demo lab with a share out of four of our programs, grantees, and ambassador. We had the 3 financial systems that we supported in the last year, among which are like the Kanzu Finance, the Kanzu Code. We also had the banks in Pakistan, and we also had BizPay. I think I butchered the name. Mi Plata, which was a local example, more on the connection between Mexico and USA. And also in the same sector, in the same section, we had our ambassador, Gavin, presenting his Hopsana for the federated, community moderated e-commerce platform. And these were really, really well received. And I love the questions that rose in the after each session, because it showed the interest for all these new services or new platforms that our grantees create. And more than happy, really, I'm opening an invitation for everyone to jump in on the Off the Ledger episode to create more share outs about the effort that they did there. After the section with our grantees and ambassadors, in the second part of the first day, we had our tech teams presenting updates about the technologies we implement here. And I think you already saw, I would say, the most successful of the most well-received one, without, any hesitation, was the wallet one, which did imply a real offline wallet, but also the demo of the mobile version of it. And we had the amazing picture that you saw with Raul with the wallet standing there. I think will be forever the hero of the demo lab pictures there. We continued then with the cards and POS with Tadej, and again, one of the really cool demonstration how you can do nowadays a payment with our cards and through a POS point of selling. And it was super interactive and more than exciting thing to see that we reach out to that place with our payment. And we closed the day with all about web monetization, sharing status from the last year presentation at the summit to this year, where we send in. We didn't mention that much the extension. We did them partially, but the extension was already presented last year. We matured it now, but we brought more into the spotlight the latest things implemented, which were the publisher tools and the new redesigns for our website, both the generic main one and also the publisher tools one. More than happy to share the links in the meeting notes for them, for those that did not yet get a chance to see them, all of the things mentioned in the demo lab. In the second day, we did continue with sharing more of the things that people implement with our technology. We had our former grantees or financial system supported like Chimani. We had a presentation about how it is to work with SEPA, the European system for payments, from our friends at GateHub, and also a brief update for Rafiki project from our engineer manager Max and Nathan. Very good one. I love that it was again very interactive and the audience could participate a lot. We also have our friends from MIFOS presenting their architecture proposal with new updates from their side. This was pretty much the prepare session, let's call it. We wanted to bring in an opportunity for people that don't see a topic that was already debated there or discussed there. So we open up the floor with an open payments, open mic session where, for example, we had the students from Bowie State presenting how they organized activities in the USA. They mentioned, again, the amazing hackathon they run on the train. Everyone in the audience was very excited. And for us, that for some of the people like me that are involved both with the students in Cape Town, and now we got to see a bit more from the shares there directly from the student, that was really impressive to share more. We also had Timea sharing more about the hackathons that we run for students, a new topic that was probably not that known to our summit attendees, as the target audience for the September hackathons were students from university in Mexico. And latest we had the SDK discussion presentation and also proposal from one of our volunteers. It was very good that the presentation rose the question to the existing team working on SDK, and it was nice to see how people engage with the work that volunteers do here at Interledger versus the team was like, oh, we didn't get the chance to think about it. So we welcome more of these activities even going forward. If there is something that you would like us to share, do reach out to us all the time with those topics. More than happy to approach them in one of the activities that we do in community. And because I did mention the hackathons in September, I think we can move a bit to the big hackathon that happened after the summit, where we had close to 200. I mean, I wish, but it would be too much work right there. It was either way a lot of work. And I think the first big shout out is for the mentors and everyone that participated in a way to help with the hackathon organization. It happened during Saturday and Sunday. It was a 24 hours. Yes, some people stay overnight there and code it. And yes, we also had mentors that stayed there overnight and helped the students. I think we had around 25 students, I think exactly 23, that we brought from the winners of the September hackathons. We tried to support all the winning team with accommodation and transportation. It was really nice to see their enthusiasm and everything they shared, like their first major event. And also for some of them was the first traveling opportunity. And here, a big shout out to Tilly and Tiffany for making those transportation possible. And of course, the extended team that helped everyone there. I think you'll find online already the winners, and I do encourage you to read the blog post about it. I do want to mention that I think one of the things that I really appreciated is that our grantees, or anyone that benefits of our programs, tried to attend this hackathon too, and we did have Kanzu Code winning a third place with their proposal, with their project, which really shows how much people enjoy working with our technology and how much they do want to create even more. I think the spectrum or diversity of the audience participants, was a large on the scale of experience. Besides the students that we supported to join the winners, we did have a lot of other student teams, both from Ciudad de Mexico, but also from outside of it, showing that people from early ages want to adopt it. And hopefully they will create even more. Maybe next year we'll see them applying for one of our programs that we have. Besides that, we did have a lot of professionals in the attendance, so we saw a spectrum of projects from early proposals to more mature ones. Again, I do invite you to read more about the winners there, and feel free to ask us even more questions in Slack if you want more details about it. I do know they were gonna prepare a bit more data-driven wrap-up till we close the year right now. Here for questions if you have others now.
I have a comment that was a very impressive, fast, info-dense, engaging share out. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Vinyl and Tilly, for the links in the chat.
Yeah, there's the good links there. And Vinyl, you'll make sure all those links are in the agenda as well, and they're probably already there, because that's where everyone knows that our running record of these meetings is. All right, we're running over time, so I won't belabor it too much. Thank you. That was a very rich and creative community call. I really appreciate the share outs. One sneak peek for the January call. ILF will actually be reserving the right to take the entire call ourselves, and we'll be presenting out our plans and strategies for 2026 as we know them at the beginning of the year. And we'll be doing more messaging around that coming out, but that's one not to miss. And your colleagues, your connections, others in the ecosystem that don't ever come or only come sometimes, this will be a good one, I think, to attend and then to listen to after. So let me give you that as a sneak peek. And with that, everyone have a wonderful seasonal break wherever you are, and we will see you in January.
Thank you.
See you next
Thanks,
year.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.